Hi, welcome back to Ahead of the Curve. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Teed, and today I'm doing an interview with Denise Barker, and I'm really excited to have you on. Hi, Denise, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is great.
So we were just kind of talking, and I think that I started following you on Instagram after you were involved with an event with Back to Healing, and I saw that you were into wine and scoliosis, and those are two of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah. Nailed it.
So I was really excited to have you on and just kind of pick your brain about what it is you do. So can you just start off by sharing a little bit of your personal journey with scoliosis and your experience also with your spinal fusions?
Yeah, of course. And again, thank you for reaching out. This is so awesome and kind of new to me, so bear with me. So I was diagnosed with scoliosis at 11, and I was diagnosed from a kind of unconventional way. It was my dentist who identified that I was a little bit off. So I don't know if you remember this, like in the 90s, when you went to the dentist, they would put you up against a wall and like take pictures for x-ray. It wasn't like this fancy thing that they have now. So my uncle is my dentist, of course. So he's like very candid with me, and he's like, Nisi, go up against the wall. And he's like, stand up straight. And I'm like, I am. Meanwhile, like all like, no, stand up straight. And I had actually like the most crooked teeth. Like I'm actually missing a tooth here, which is still sort of in my face. And I've just recently learned that, extreme crooked teeth, crooked jaw, that's also sort of a byproduct of having scoliosis. So it all makes sense. But, he told my mom, of course, that I needed to go see an orthopedic surgeon, get checked out for scoliosis. They had missed it somehow in school. You bend over and they put the,
Yeah.
And so I went to Pittsburgh. I just went to like a normal doctor, and they were like, you need to go to Shriners. So I went to Shriners in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it turned out I had a 72-degree curve in my lumbar and a 54-degree in my thoracic. And they were a little shocked that it took me that long to get there, because I had always struggled when I was a kid. You're 10, 11, 12, 13. Like everything, nothing fit right. Everything was a little off. I had a hump on my shoulder, and it's just very uncomfortable in my skin and in my body. So after I went to Shriners, everything was really fast paced. They said I needed immediate surgery for the lumbar. They gave my parents the opportunity to do the entire spine, the 54 and the lumbar, and my parents chose not to do that, thinking that mobility would be saved. But that's actually what set me on a trajectory to have 10 more surgeries.
10. Oh,
yeah, but some of those are corrective. So I want to be like very transparent about that. I've had 3 total spinal fusions. 3 of them were corrective. So things like ribs and hips, some wound washes. Unfortunately, I received it or got an infection. And then other things which I have rarely talked about, which I'm totally happy to talk about with you, is I had a sunken chest wall. So I've had a lot of surgeries for the girls here.
oh, yeah, yeah.
It's something that I have never talked about because it's like taboo to talk about your breasts or something. But my mom actually, it's ridiculous. My mom gave me an earful. She was like, if you're a 13-year-old girl right now dealing with the sunken chest wall and you're completely undevelopmental on one side, like, wouldn't you want to hear someone's story? I was like, you're right.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
It's true. So,
Was that a result of the surgery that you had the sunken chest wall? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So the first surgery happened in 2000, and it was just the lumbar, and it was what's called an anterior fusion, which I'm sure you're familiar with. They try not to do them anymore, just because it is so traumatizing to a little body, traumatizing to your body. I have to say, before I was cleared to have that surgery, 1 month earlier, I had to undergo heart surgery for a heart disease that I was born with called Wolff-Parkinson's-White syndrome. The anesthesia was about 14 hours, so they needed to do an ablation before that. So it was like sort of back to back, right?
Mhm.
So heart surgery in December, and my first spinal fusion in January, right after my birthday. I got my first kiss. That was like the best part.
No.
So they did a lumbar anterior. They removed one of my ribs and about a quarter of my hip for cartilage. And I was in the hospital for quite a while. I had to undergo a blood transfusion. And I was 11 at the time, but the trauma was so intense that actually my first menstrual cycle came on because of it. So that was also a really interesting thing that happened. My mom and my dad refused to talk about that recovery because it was just like traumatizing for the whole family. I remember it. I was very medicated, but I do know that it was about a month of crying and intense pain. I was homeschooled after that for 6 months. I had to learn how to walk again. And and then, about a year later, I was up and moving, but things were still kind of iffy. So that's when things started to shift. After the lumbar anterior, my 54-degree curve continued to get worse, which created a large hump on my right shoulder and sunk my chest wall in. And these are your developmental years. I developed faster than a lot of girls. So I had absolutely pretty much the size that I do now, one left breast and absolutely no right breast. And when I say no, I mean like it was sunk in.
Inverted almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very traumatizing for a girl in developmental stages to just feel so different. I'm sure many can relate. And and so the Scoliosis Foundation actually donated one breast implant.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, when I was 15, they put one breast implant in here as sort of like a, here you go.
Yeah.
And it was what's called it was an implant, but it needed to be replaced. It was like kind of like a, I'm a child, so what do you do there?
Mhm.
And it needed to be replaced in 10 years. I actually ended up getting it replaced like 2 years ago. I found the same surgeon, and he
Oh my
was able
gosh,
I
wow.
know it's crazy. There's a lot more to the story there, but I'll stop. So so that's the story with the chest wall.
Mhm.
And then so up to about 17, I was okay. And then I had to eventually get the thoracic curve fused.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the second spinal fusion. And after that, I was actually really good. I got into working out. My first trainer was when I was about 20 years old. It was the first time I picked up weights and started doing Pilates and started running and
Amazing.
all kinds of physical activity, which I could never do before the age of 20, basically.
Mhm.
And that was great. And all through my 20s was okay. But then about the age of 29, things started to shift again because my pelvis was the only thing that was not fused. So some hardware actually came out. I had a loose screw, essentially. I was very, very tilted. So I found Dr. Qureshi and Dr. Frank Schwab at the Hospital for Special Surgery, and they were able to connect all 3 spinal fusions.
Oh,
And
wow.
okay.
Wow.
Long story there, yeah.
Yeah. So since you've endured all of those surgeries, have you been able to continue with a pretty active lifestyle?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's a reason why I am so strong today, is because I really focused on movement after every recovery. Being in bed and recovering is really an important part of it, and you never want to push your body. But if I listened to, what the doctors told me to do, I probably wouldn't be this mobile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So movement was really an integral part of my healing.
So since your doctors weren't recommending that to you, how did you come about, like, knowing that that was important, or just, feeling the confidence to not listen to them?
So I did have doctors who encouraged, gentle walking, things like that. In the earlier stages, it was more absolutely no weightlifting, never ride a roller coaster, don't ever get on a motorcycle, don't ever, things like that. And I remember receiving a list of about 90 things that I was not allowed to do. And
Mhm.
I did 89 of them because bungee jumping is not recommended. So I even, jumped out of a plane. I've ridden,
Wow.
got all the things. And I think that's just, my disposition of being pretty sassy and not wanting to, do wanting to surpass the expectations that you're giving in your circumstance. But also just, the little bits that I did every single day,
Mhm.
whether I walked a little bit farther, whether I lifted a little bit heavier of a weight, whether I, joined the tennis team and was just like the mascot for a while, just being surrounded by athletic people. And that really affected me. That
Yeah.
was, I was like, one day I'll do this. And one day,
Amazing.
around the age of 20, I was able to. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that that's really important for people to hear, that you can be really active with fusion, and movement is medicine, and the
Mm.
more that you move, the better you're going to feel, like physically and mentally. So what has been like the most like therapeutic thing for you, like while you were kind of going through your recoveries? Because that is a lot of trauma to your body, especially that anterior approach that you had.
Yeah. The anterior healing process that took almost a year, and it was extremely painful. And I I feel, for me, what it was just really getting comfortable in my skin again, learning that this is my disposition and it's okay, and kind of giving myself love and grace. And at 12 years old, you don't really know what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? So I actually, I'm a little bit more concerned about parents at that time. Like right now, part of my advocacy with Back to Healing is, looking toward the concerned parents, because, you're in your 40s, your late 30s or 40s, and your child is going through such a traumatizing experience. That's a lot for them. So I know what I did was just, be cared for by these incredible, my incredible parents. But just know that, their circumstance is not exactly what it's going to be in the future. So just trusting that it can get a lot better. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it is so hard for parents. They feel a lot of guilt and blame
Yeah.
themselves for things. And I
It's
think supporting them is just as important as supporting the child that's going through it. So
absolutely, absolutely. And they're the ones on the ground floor, just getting us better. And then, the fusions when I was 17 and 29, those are a little different. And I would take those times um, to kind of reinvent my life. It'd be like, okay, I'm down for probably 6 months. I'm really down for 1 month. What am I going to do? I'm going to focus on journaling. I'm going to focus on how I want my body to feel. I'm going to focus on ways that I can really strengthen my body, make myself better. After this surgery, when I was 17, I was like, okay, we're going for it. We're going to run. We're going to be active the first time. Most people do that in their adolescent years. And this was, so it's all about journaling and just, kind of reinvention. And the same happened at 29 as well.
yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
long recoveries.
yeah, really long. Yeah. Um, so we briefly mentioned the wine business that you're involved in. I'd love for people to hear a little bit more about what it is that you do, and how did you get into this field? Like what was like kind of the trigger of your interest?
Yeah. So my mom is very Italian. She's been a chef her whole life. She's an incredible cook and chef. And so a part of my healing actually, and a part of my upbringing was just people coming over to the house for dinner all the time. And it was just the best, a house filled with tons of people, like the humidity from the oven, all the smells, like I just loved that. And um I had always wanted to be a singer, but was told I could not be a singer due to the curves of my spine and my restricted breathing. Yeah, I was told that in fourth grade. I was told it again in sixth grade, and told it again in high school when I wanted to do competitive singing. So in college, I wanted to go to school for music therapy. And, in the back of my mind, been told that I could not sing, I drastically changed my major and went to culinary school.
Oh,
And it was great because I loved singing and I loved everything. If I couldn't have it, if I didn't think I could, which I now know that I can, again, don't always listen to the people telling you no. I loved going into culinary school, and the best part of culinary school for me was the wine class. And I fell in love just because it was a study of your senses, a study of like paying attention to, what you taste, what you smell, right? But then it was also a study of history and geology and geography and the traditions of people from all around the world. And being from a small town in Ohio, it felt like it was travel for me.
yeah.
So I really fell in love with that. And after I graduated from culinary school, I moved to France and started working on vineyards. And when I came back, I
Wow.
hit the ground running in the industry, and have fallen in love with the education part of wine. Yeah.
That's amazing. So how long did you spend in France?
I was there for about 6 months. 3 of them were illegal because of visa. I mean, what are you gonna do?
You're like,
Yeah, it's fine. Um, yeah, I was there for about 6 months. And then when I came back, I started actually working with a lot of French producers and suppliers and distributors. So I would kind of always had one foot in France. Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're traveling back and forth for a bit there.
absolutely. Yeah. Any job that I had was usually with someone in the French in France. Yeah.
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 So you're a sommelier, and now you educate other people how to become sommeliers. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a lead instructor at what's called the Sommelier Society of America, and it's a course that you can take, a semestered course. It's a 6-month intensive, and then at the end, you're given, if you do pass the test, you're given the sommelier certificate. And it's the oldest wine school in America, actually. So
Really?
yeah, I'm actually teaching on Tuesday. We're doing our blind tasting series, so teaching how to blind taste, how to get to a conclusion through deductive tasting methods. It's hard, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's really fun. Are
Yeah.
there a lot of people is it hard to pass that? Is it, or
It's
is
if you study and really get engaged and involved within the 6 months, it's not something you can just kind of like,
wing it?
yeah. No, you really, because it's an active participating. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's great. And with the advocacy for scoliosis and sort of the way that I want to get into health and wellness, I because of my experience with scoliosis, I am so focused on healing, health and wellness, keeping myself healthy and things like that. So part of what I want to move into in the future is doing more health and wellness for the hospitality industry, which was definitely fueled by my experience with scoliosis. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what would that look like for you?
Yeah. So in 2020, I went to nutrition school, just the IIN, certification, and felt really confident about health coaching after I graduated. So what really I want to do is bring coaching techniques, protocols to the alcohol industry.
Yeah.
Some hospitality people are the greatest people you'll ever meet, working in restaurants, working in import and distribution and things like that, but we're surrounded by alcohol, and oftentimes you get sort of in this vortex of, being a part of that lifestyle. So what I want to do is bring lifestyle protocols that are incorporating health and wellness into the alcohol business.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, living where I live. So I live in South Carolina. It's like a big vacation destination. I live right near Hilton Head Island,
Oh,
and
yeah.
have a lot of friends who are in the F&B industry, and it is like a very hard lifestyle to kind of separate yourself from the unhealthy aspects of, you start your day late, you end your day even later, and then it's easy to just kind of fall into bad health patterns. And I think that's really a neat thing that you solve the need for that.
I would love to. I mean, this is like my life's work. It's really my passion. And I just feel that, the lifestyle is really hard, as you said. And it's late to bed. It's really weird eating times. It's a lot of stress, a lot of on your feet. So anything that I can do to help promote wellness.
Yeah, love that. Love that. What are a couple of ways that you've kind of integrated your passion for scoliosis advocacy into like your wine business? I know that you participated in that Back to Healing event. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and maybe some other things that you're doing?
Sure. So backtohealing.org is a foundation with Marcus John at the helm. He's incredible. I don't know if you know his story, but he was in the fashion industry and was really touched by a model who had scoliosis. She was really insecure about, obviously putting on certain clothes and things. And he was very inspired by her story. So started doing a lot of advocacy work for scoliosis. And it was first the Straightforward Foundation, and now Back to Healing. And he and I come together a couple times a year to try to figure out how we can raise money, raise awareness for scoliosis, especially around June. And last year we decided to do wine tasting in the fall. It was so fun. I got to meet so many scolio warriors, and we drank some really great wine that I had donated. Of course, got a little tipsy. Everybody shared their stories and just came together. It was a beautiful experience. My parents were there, and that was really healing for us. It was like the first time that my parents and I, like in one room, kind of talked about the anterior fusion, which was so traumatizing to all of us. And we cried, and it was just great.
Oh,
Such a
that's
good moment.
I'm
But the
getting
wine was great. Yeah.
That's so cool. So do you guys have some other things kind of planned in the future?
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on some, of course, social media endeavors to raise awareness. We're hopefully do another wine tasting in the fall, and everyone from around the country should come to New York and experience it. Like, I would love to meet everyone. So yes, for sure.
Very cool. I love that. And the fall in New York is the best time to be in New York.
Oh, God. Like everyone's like, let's go to New York in the summer. And I'm like, no. Here it is hot, smells like trash, like no.
Yeah, one of my best friends from high school, she lives in Hoboken, so we usually try to go visit them in the fall. So maybe I can line that up with the event this year and do both.
Girl, I know. I'm actually going to send an email after this and be like, let's plan. For sure.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, through like doing all the things that you do and the experiences that you've been through, I'm sure you've encountered a lot of misconceptions about your scoliosis and your spinal fusion. Can you share a couple of things that you've encountered and how you address them with people?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the myths of scoliosis, one of my favorite things. So the first myth is that it only affects women. And that's completely inaccurate. It affects women more, as I'm sure you know, but actually my nephew is 18 years old. He's 6'7", and he's dealing with a pretty moderate case of scoliosis right now that is under review, but I know it affects men as well. And I want men to know that all of this is for them as well. And I think the biggest sort of misconception is scoliosis is so common, right? And this is why I've downplayed a lot of my experience throughout my life, because the moment that you say, oh yeah, I had surgery for scoliosis, it's like, oh, my sister has scoliosis, my mom has scoliosis, I have scoliosis. And so it's like this very common, unfortunately very common disease. But when it's like a slow burning fire, it's often like a slow burn until it turns into a very chronic condition, right? So I think what I would say is have just empathy for somebody that's speaking to you about their scoliosis experience, and it's validating their experience, right? Just because scoliosis is so common doesn't mean that it necessarily can't turn into something that is life altering. I've spent, chunks of my life have been taken away to healing from surgeries long times, and it's really shaped the way that my life has been lived. So, just validating somebody's experience and being empathetic to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And it can be sometimes like a one-upping with the condition. It's like, oh, well, my scoliosis is worse than yours. But like what I've learned through my studies and everything, like you can have a 90-degree curve and not experience any pain or disability. And you could be a person that has a 10-degree curve and you have a tremendous amount of pain and disability. So everybody's experience is, like you said, it's different and it's personal and it deserves an ear.
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. And I think the last thing that I would say too is throughout this journey, especially in the health and wellness field, there have been times where I have felt a little bit shamed for going the surgery route, right? Do whatever you take, the message was do whatever you take to not have surgery, to do non-invasive things. And we did that. I was braced for a while, and also, just really take the time to listen to somebody's experience before kind of shaming them for doing a life curing procedure. That's just because you went and you did not avoid intervention does not mean one thing is good or bad. So anybody out there that's being shamed, like do the Schroth method until you can't anymore because it will fix it's not always a win, right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's sometimes, like you said, it's sometimes necessary to save your life. So yeah, I think that's so.
I have an aunt in my family who actually died from scoliosis. She had a large, eventually punctured her lungs, Aunt Jenny. And so I know that this disease is so common, but it can be disastrous if left untreated.
Wow. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that about your aunt.
It's okay. Yeah, it's another misconception that you cause it by picking up heavy things or your environment or something. It's a mixture of developmental, environmental, and genetics, and no one really knows why scoliosis happens. So just be kind.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, just being nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you balance it all? It sounds like you are just really busy doing fun, amazing things. How do you balance like your advocacy for scoliosis, and what tips can you share for people who are kind of pursuing that entrepreneurial route of life?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's so rewarding at the end of the day. It's, go slow, but also kick yourself in the ass. Like I I had to learn to give myself grace, just because a lot of my healing came from how much more can I do? How much better can I be? And it was a lot of, in my early 20s, being hard on myself. Like, yes, I can do more, I can do better. And then in my 20s and my early 30s, I had to learn slow, grace,
Mhm.
love. You can't hate yourself into changing. You can't battle yourself into changing or being better. So it's a combination of the two. If I listen to my body every morning when I wake up, I would never get out of bed.
Yeah.
It's a balance of, how much can you do? Let's put one foot on the ground. Let's stand up. Let's stretch. Let's take a breath. Let's sit down, and entrepreneurial work is the same thing. It's let's go, let's do this, let's get it done. But you have to recover and you have to give yourself grace. And there will be times where, I do maybe cancel social plans, or I need to take my energy back, and that's okay. I try really hard not to give myself a hard time for that anymore. It's really a balance of listening to yourself and yeah, and giving yourself grace, but hustle, baby. Gotta hustle. You gotta know that you are so much more capable of probably what anybody told you, and you are not your circumstance. Like
Yes.
you can hustle your way to healing, to a stronger body, to a great career. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting coming from, a family where my grandfather was an I cannot say that word very well.
Hard, you're just
Entrepreneur.
a boss. It's a boss.
But, other than him, I didn't really have any examples of that. So, I sometimes feel like I'm kind of like in this unknown world, and my family doesn't really get it. My friends, they kind of get it, but it can be kind of lonely, honestly.
I agree with it. Can we start like a support group for just ladies who hustle? Like, it's true. When you do take a step back, and like when you're doing all these things and you get a win, you're like, but people are like, what do you mean? I don't understand. Like, you're successful, just be happy. And you're like, no, it's the small wins.
Yeah, yeah, celebrating those. Geez.
I got you, girl.
So can you share like a success story or a memorable moment from your advocacy work that maybe comes to mind?
Oh, sure. Well, so I don't know if this is exactly it, but posting the video that I just posted was super uncomfortable for me. I mean, probably the most uncomfortable. And the person that filmed it, Bianca, she's incredible. She's a news anchor for Fox 5, so she really understands how to tell a story, and scripts and things that need to be said. And I just thought, the video was just too much. It was, and this is me consistently downplaying my experience. I didn't beat cancer. I'm alive. Like, everything's fine. It was fine. It was fine. She's like, it's not fine. And then between that and my mother saying, if you had seen a video of somebody doing this with 3 spinal fusions when you were 12 and you were going through that anterior, your life would have been very different. You could have seen that you're going to be okay. It can be okay with work, right? So I think that was probably my biggest advocacy win to date, because it was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the response that I got, all of the DMs of people, with just a little bit of scoliosis, who's really uncomfortable with, considering spinal fusion surgery, things like that. I mean, I feel like there's so many people that need to come together, and there needs to be a group of us that just support each other, because it is so common and it is often invalidated, that it's great to be seen and recognized for, the big decisions that you need to make. Having surgery is a really big decision. Having something bolted into your spine is life-changing, and often changes the trajectory of a lot of your health, I've thyroid, digestive, and so it's just coming together and doing all those uncomfortable videos so we can, go through this together. I'm in, but I'm with you. I'm uncomfortable too, but we can do this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And you've said it a few different ways and times throughout this interview, but what advice would you give somebody that's looking ahead to get that surgery done? If they're considering it, how they can navigate the emotional and physical challenges of it that come along with it.
Yeah, I would say explore every option and go really slow. When I was 29 having my third fusion, I had to choose between two surgeons, NYU and HSS, and they were telling me two different outcomes in two different things. And I, had to choose, like, one of them was more invasive going through the front. And I had to have two surgeons. The other was like, it's not possible. You can't connect them. And this surgeon said, it is possible. You can. And both of them had very different outcomes, and it was a little scary. So go really slow, give yourself grace, find your supportive community, which can be us, which can be an online community is not something I had when I was 12. So this is a great time. And also just navigating the emotional challenges is really difficult, but just going slow, asking yourself the really important questions, how do I feel right now? Do I really need to sit down? Can I move a little bit more? Can I go farther? Right. And then giving yourself as much grace as possible, just because, it's very invasive. Your spine is the life force of your body. It's keeping you upright. It's moving you through this crazy world. And, just give yourself a lot of time to make sure that you're making the right decision. And just go slow as you can. Yeah.
Wow. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. And, I feel like this interview is going to provide a lot of hope to people and understanding, even just comfort, hearing you say the things that you've said about, there's nothing wrong with getting the surgery done. And, if you feel shame, that is not you, like that's somebody else putting their emotions and their ideas on you. I've really appreciated your time today. And I would love to hear about how people can connect with you and get in touch with you and follow your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way is through Instagram. It's at Denise Barker Wine. It is a wine account, so you'll see a lot of fun things about wine, but I also do post a lot of scoliosis advocacy. And soon it will be Denise Barker Wellness, and that will be the lifestyle management health coaching business that I hope to soon launch by the end of the year. So
Love that. And one last question, since this is the Ahead of the Curve podcast, can you share one thing that you're doing right now that's maybe ahead of the curve? So like a book that you're reading, or kind of a hobby that you've gotten into that you could share with people?
sure. So in terms of like healing, in terms of feeling.
Just anything and anything, anything that you're finding fun and enjoyable right now.
Yeah, totally. I am really enjoying reformer Pilates. It's not exactly new, but there's part of the reformer Pilates where there is sled moves and sprints. Running is something I was told I could never do in my life. Like that was a consistent, do not run, bad for joints. I'm like, okay. I actually do 20-minute sprint intervals in addition to Pilates reformer, and that has like changed my body. It's given me like these incredible endorphins. Like I absolutely feel very strong, and I go slow and I don't do a whole lot of it, but that's been great. And the Mel Robbins podcast.
Yes, I love her so much.
She's the mom, the sassy mom voice that I didn't know I needed, and I to her almost every day when I'm feeling like a little rough, and she's so listen to that podcast. It's great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for coming on. And I hope to be, meeting you in real life in the future and being a part of all the awesome things that you're doing. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Can't wait to share a glass of wine with you in the fall.
Yeah. Same here. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.